Ronnie, lead me down the path of like, when did you get to the point? Did you have a team, or did you just decide I want to open the brokerage? Kind of lead me down that growth process there.
No. So I did. So I was probably right around year 5. Year 5, I probably realized I started to, so year 1 was so low in real estate sales. Year 2 didn't take very hard to double it. But probably year 5, I quadrupled it over that time. And then I realized I was starting to pick up momentum. And so I did form a team. The team was called the Woodrow Associates team at the time. And I think I had 5 agents working for me. And we were doing quite well. We were getting some international awards from our brokerage at that time. We were the top 1% of the agents with that brokerage worldwide. So we were starting to sell real estate intently. I always knew that my greater aspirations was to own the brokerage, at that time. And so I was in sales for probably a total of, brokerage is so 18 years, I think, before I finally did it. I had a team for probably 13 of those years. And so I was educating myself on the behind the scenes processes of, starting a brokerage and, as an independent versus a franchise. But we did well in sales. We had a really good team, a high quality team. The hardest thing was when I started the brokerage is taking my team and breaking them up into agents on our company. And there was a little bit of pushback because we had gotten so good at just working together. And so I had to kind of remember and remind them that nothing's going to change, even though it did pretty quickly. But, we did a lot of sales. I'm like you. I remember 2008 to 2012 when the industry had to reinvent itself. And, I remember the first time I heard the word short sell. We had to learn that system like you did, cutting your teeth on REOs. That's what we were doing at that time, and then we were doing a lot of them. I remember in that market carrying 80 and 90 listings, and they weren't moving for 6 months. So it isn't a brag fest, just nothing was selling. So we were collecting them. Which is
how did from the brokerage standpoint, obviously that's the typical traditional evolution, in our industry. You said you knew early on that you kind of wanted to do your own thing. What was it that, kind of led you to that decision? Because, I think sometimes people feel like they have to build a team, right? Like, that's just the next step, or now I have to go and create my own brokerage or buy a franchise or whatever. And it's interesting because Ryan and I have no desire to go and do a brokerage. We're like, paperwork, no. Liability, no. So for you, what was some of that thought process there, just for the audience, because there may be some people that are like, should I do it? Should I not do it?
Yeah. I think what I didn't know at the time was so many things. One of them was the amount of communication that was going to start coming back at me. Depending on your agent volume and outside affiliates, like it took me a while to field the calls, the questions, and the text. For us in the brokerage, when we were trying to make the decision, do we go franchise or independent? I went to some of these big conferences, the Inman conferences, the NARS conferences. I did all those, our bar camps. And I was starting to do my research on brands first, the franchises. And I interviewed with several large ones, several that wasn't even in our market at the time, but they were starting to grow from the north, west side of the country. And I started realizing, and this works well for some people because some of the systems are offhand if you go that route, but you give up a little bit based on cost because, there's corporate costs. And so I started looking at all the tools. And for me, I realized I could a la carte the tools that I liked versus a package that was given to us. And we started Realistar, and we left a big mom and pop shop here that's no longer in Columbus, Ohio anymore. And we went cold turkey. Team started. I remember our first office brokerage meeting was around my island in my kitchen because I hadn't even identified a building being put us in yet. But you learn along the way. In the beginning, you throw some money at things you don't need. You spend some time on items that you don't need to spend time on. The hardest thing is also telling agents when this might not be the right career path for them, even though they think it is, because you can see now from an outside perspective the lack of effort. Or you can let the shining star know that I can see something in you that's not normal either. Yeah. But when we started it was hard. We're our next month is our 5th year anniversary, actually. And so I think we've gotten through some crazy stuff, COVID. But we're now in 4 markets, or we have 4 offices and growing as a company right now. So we're pretty happy where we're at.
Nice. I got to ask, you got a unique brokerage name. Any story behind that?
Yeah, good question, actually. It's probably our fifth name. So those of you who are in Ohio, when starting a brokerage, you have to run the name through the Secretary of State first before the broker for the division will approve it, because they want to make sure there's no conflicting names or similar names, right? And it was probably our fifth name, and I'm like, I wanted a singular name. I didn't want a two-person name. I wanted it to sound corporate because I didn't want it to be Woodrow Real Estate, because first my wife would have laughed at me. So I kept going through names, and I said, what can I add real? And then I started playing around with stars, and the original brokerage was going to be an exclusively cloud-based brokerage with no offices. And I'm like, we're in the cloud, so what's above clouds? Well, there's stars. So Realistar got played around with. There was so many goofy names. I walked around with a broker little booklet for 6 months. Every little idea when I jot it down and start scratching stuff out. If I find that booklet, I'd love to share you the names. But we landed on Realistar, and then the word "reals" in there, list is in the middle, and star. And so our agents are basically known as Realistars up to the industry. It's kind of where we played around with it. So our little mantra. But
I love it. I love it. No, I love it. Like I said, it's a unique name, and I didn't know the story behind it. And I think that's awesome. I always tell people, like, how do you come up with like team names and stuff? I'm like, I need a couple beers first, and then I'll start. Something will flow.
I'm pretty sure that's Realistar came off a few beers myself, right?